A federal judge puts President Trump's travel ban on hold, so the president attacks the judge on where else but Twitter. Even people in his own party are having trouble defending that one. Then the president's latest comments on Vladimir Putin are the most curious yet. We will try to make sense of a foreign policy that's getting harder to make sense of. Also, Saturday Night Live, well, they had a field day this weekend, targeting, among others, Steve Bannon. SNL got some laughs, but take a closer look at the Trump advisor, and maybe it's not so funny. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We start with a court battle over the Trump administration's travel ban. A federal judge in Seattle stopped the order nationwide on Friday, and the administration's appeal to reinstate it was rejected. Now it's in the hands of an appellate court, and it could go all the way to the highest court. So for now, immigration agents are not enforcing it, and President Trump is not too thrilled with the judge who made that ruling. Here are some of his angry tweets. And I'm reading verbatim here. The opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned. What is our country coming to when a judge can halt a Homeland Security travel ban and anyone, even with bad intentions, can come into U.S.? Because the ban was lifted by a judge, many very bad and dangerous people may be pouring into our country. A terrible decision. Democrats and Republicans not too thrilled with the president's comments about a sitting federal judge. Here's what GOP Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska had to say.
I'll be honest, I don't understand language like that. We don't have so-called judges. We don't have so-called senators. We don't have so-called presidents.
This also brought back memories of the way that Donald Trump spoke about the judge in the Trump University case.
I have had horrible rulings. I've been treated very unfairly by this judge. Now, this judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall.
So no Mexican judge could ever be involved in a case that involves you?
He's a member of a society where, very pro-Mexico, and that's fine. It's all fine. But
Except that you're calling into question his heritage.
I think he should recuse himself.
Okay, let's bring in our panel right now. Former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman joins us. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Iona College and also senior advisor at the consulting firm Applied Techonomics. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Listen, we've talked many times about, you can't take the president's words literally, or then candidates Trump's words literally. Well, he's president of the United States, and if you go to the homepage of the White House's actual .gov, it states implicitly what the role of the courts are, what the roles of the judges are. It explains the judges, federal judges, are appointed to lifetime terms, so they will not be influenced by whether it be the legislative or executive branch. And then he calls a judge appointed by then President Bush, with unanimous approval by the U.S. Senate at the time, a so-called judge because he doesn't agree with him. And so my question is, and Gina, I'll start with you, do you think he says this because he doesn't understand literally Civics 101 about the separation of powers and what the framers actually believed in, or that he doesn't care?
We don't know what he knows. We assume that everybody who's gone through high school and college knows basic Civics 101, so we hope he knows that. But what we do know is this is the same thing he said on the campaign trail, and so there's nothing changed about his reaction. This is the way Donald Trump, whether a candidate or president, reacts when anybody does something that he feels is wronging him. And so in this case, you have a judge stopping this order, and he lashes out. It's the same thing he has done repeatedly. The problem is it doesn't serve his own interests. It would be one thing to do this if this was productive in terms of achieving a policy goal or in terms of boosting his poll ratings or whatever it was. It's difficult to think of any way in which this helps him. And it certainly doesn't help him with the travel ban because, of course, what's going to happen is judges will protect the court. It's a co-equal branch of government. They are less likely to side with him after this than they might have been before. So he's essentially shooting himself in the foot as he does so often, and he's leaving the White House to try to clean this up. And you have poor Vice President Pence out on the stump over the weekend trying to make sense of this, and there's really not a lot to be sensitive to.
And there was no Republican cover. Even Mitch
cover.
McConnell on Sunday, he went on thinking he was talking about Gorsuch's nomination here and the merits of him to be a Supreme Court justice, had a backtrack. We have a piece of news, Andrew. The White House had till the top of this hour to file an appeal, and they have. And then this will theoretically move its way through, obviously, the court, and we believe it'll get to the Supreme Court here, assuming they'll take it. But before I get to the merits of that, about what he said, about what this ban did or didn't do and everything else, because the facts also took a beating here as well, I was shocked by how many people said, hey, at least we know our courts still work, that our courts can say no. In 2 weeks, think of the conversations we're having now, that we can actually feel comfortable that we're still a functioning republic. I mean, that to me was, the headline was that people were surprised that you could actually have a court that would have the temerity to say no to a president.
I'm not sure who those people would be who would be wondering whether the courts could actually take action against the president.
Oh, a lot of people
I
were
assume that those
actually
were
worried if it
people
still
who are not particularly avid political watchers or followers, because that's, you know, and that's one of the reasons why the Supreme Court seat is such a difficult and such an important battle, especially for Democrats right now, because we're continuing the judicial balance that we have. But I think Jeannie's right that this is less about him disregarding the power that that particular judge has, and more just about sticking it to anybody who tells him no, which seems to be part of his personality. And I think we're going to continue to see that. I think the only federal judge in the country who he wouldn't say that about if they ruled against him is his sister.
Right.
But other than that, it's then reaching out to his base and telling them you should disregard what this person says and keep focused because I want to make America great again.
You know, in the same day, he said, Congressman, that those negative polls, you can't believe them, they're fake news. Not all polls, but polls that have bad numbers about him. And just the brutal nakedness of how, at least he's being honest, that if he doesn't like a number, it's got to be fake. If he does like a number, of course, he'll source it. But explain why it's not just, oh, he says something and everybody, you know, takes the bait and freaks out. It's a big deal when you question the legitimacy of a federal judge because a judge doesn't agree with you. I mean, if you think about it, you go back. Obviously, we've had presidents who fought here, but even Nixon and even Clinton during the scandals and everything else, they never questioned the legitimacy of the court. They'll take issue with, you know, findings or whatever else, but not the actual legitimacy of a federal judge. And not once, but twice here, what we obviously saw during the campaign, but yet again here. That's not funny. That's scary, right?
Right. It is scary, and I agree with Jeannie and Andrew and you that this is a big deal. The president is not supposed to demean the co-equal branches of the U.S. government. Those co-equal branches, of course, are the judiciary, the Congress, along with the executive. And by the way, the president, the executive, is Article 2. Article 1 in the Constitution is the Congress, so he's not even Article 1. But the point is, for him to say that judges don't have any role in law enforcement, can you imagine that? We want our judges to tell the police, not that they would, you're not allowed to break into a person's home in the middle of the night, rummaging around for whatever without a warrant. We want judges to protect us from the overreaching of either the executive, the president, or of the Congress.
You know, Dominic, I did an interview today with Kirk Johnson. People may remember his name. He was the guy who had served in an aid capacity in Iraq about 10 years ago, and years since. And he was based in Fallujah. So he was with, you know, Marines and our fighting forces there, and also with the interpreters. And he put faces, or at least names, to some of the people that had visas and had gone through the process to get in this country. What Trump said was a lie, in that now, because of the judge's ruling, people are going to be pouring into the borders here like it's the Rio Grande coming in from the Middle East. It's years of work to get in here. And even then, they have been the most scrutinized refugees in the history of our country. So it's not even he's questioning legitimacies, he's pushing falsehoods. And I think the big thing I took away from the last 2 weeks is, at every opportunity, whether it's inner cities, whether it's the border, whether it's the idea of, you know, terror threats, he wants to scare the living you-know-what out of this country, that there's some apocalyptic, end coming to us, whether it be from within our country or from outside the borders. He's trying to scare us every chance he gets.
Richard, it's sad. I agree with all the points that have been made here tonight. Our president plays to the court of public opinion. There's no other way to put it. That's what's important to him. He's right on every single thing. All the rest of us don't know what we're talking about. And to be honest with you, as I'm sitting here thinking, I'm saying, okay, the country took a gamble on the first black president, Obama, and history will probably judge that it was a good thing. The country took a gamble with this president. It's not working.
And I was thinking, you imagine if Obama said, because they didn't like the reaction of a federal court on an executive order of his. Remember, he was imperial for doing it? Well, okay. If he turned around and said, that so-called judge, right? Do you imagine how much people are freaking out right now? I got to hear a break, but really quickly, how long do you think your former Republican colleagues are going to say, all right, we're going to keep riding this, crazy ride here before they start coordinatedly criticizing the administration, because they got to deal with the courts too, right?
I think it's already happening and will happen more in the weeks ahead. One other fact, just remember, no one from these 7 countries on Trump's temporary ban list, not one person from those countries ever committed a terrorist act in the United States. Not one.
Okay, when we come back here, President Trump says he wants to roll back financial regulations in the Dodd-Frank Act because it, quote, will help his friends. Those are his words. But the question is, will it hurt the very people who voted for him? We'll take a look at what is an unpopular piece of legislation in some circles in this country. We'll wonder if it's going to do more harm than good getting rid of it.